Good morning, Kate Spurrier. How are you
Hey,
today?
I'm good, Sean. How are you doing today?
Doing very well. Doing very well. Thank you for having. Actually, thank you for joining us today. And I just want to tell everybody, welcome to MMBBA Live. I'm Sean Williams. I'm your host and current president of the Maryland Mortgage Bankers and Brokers Association. And so each week, as you know, Kate will be spotlighting leadership, advocacy, and the people helping move our industry forward. You happen to be one of those people. And so today I'm pleased to be joined by Kate Spurrier, ladies and gentlemen. And Kate is an experienced mortgage banker with a strong background in financial product sales and marketing. She brings a deep expertise in problem solving, networking, lead generation, prospecting, and branding. She's got hands on experience across social media, content creation, event planning. That's something that she does an amazing job with us. And Communications. So, in addition to her professional work, Kate also leads the MMBBA, Maryland Mortgage Bankers and Brokers Association, Young Professionals Network. She's co-chair of a committee there, and so she helps develop and connect the next generation of industry leaders, and that's a part of why we're here today. So um, we'll jump in, and so Kate, I read your canned information in your bio, but do me a favor, tell us a bit about yourself, like who you are, what you do, and then I have another question for you as well.
Sure. All right. Well, I'm Kate Spurrier. I've been in the mortgage business for about 11 years now. Got in, I think it was 2015. Quite honestly, didn't know how to spell mortgage, didn't know there was a T in there when I first got into the business, like many of us. It wasn't something that I grew up like knowing that I wanted to do. I've talked to this before about Sean. Like, I think I've maybe have come across two loan officers ever that actually grew up knowing that this was something they wanted to do, and both of them had like family members in the business. My background actually is in mass communications with focuses in public relations and advertising. So I used to like write press releases. I actually worked for a designer kids clothing company. That was my first professional job out of college. Um, a lot of people don't know that about me. It was a company that was very similar to kind of Rent the Runway, or the idea of like renting a tux, but it was kids designer clothing. um, I have a picture of me standing next to Good Morning America, one of their hosts, who was the former Miss America. So I had a pretty interesting start to my professional career, and we actually sold some of our clothes on Facebook and Instagram way before Facebook Marketplace was actually a thing. This was like 2013, maybe even 2012. So then it was a startup company. It was like a little bit too early, I think, because a lot of the people that were doing kind of Rent the Runway and this idea of renting clothing weren't quite at the point of having kids yet. So unfortunately, that company still isn't around anymore, but learned a lot. And the issue that I had was that I had all of this experience but hadn't been out of college that long. So as far as trying to find a job in like marketing, public relations, I kept getting put into these kind of entry level positions, and I would interview and I would sit there and just go, oh, this is going to be so boring. I don't want to do this. So I ended up actually going through a recruiting agency, and somehow I ended up interviewing at a mortgage company. It was an online, pretty much all online VA company. And talked to a couple friends of mine. A good friend of mine was the former vice president of sales and trading at Legg Mason. He's like, I think you'd actually probably be pretty good at this. So I decided to take a shot on it and went into doing mortgages. And actually, that company was getting their purchase division off the ground at the time. So I was the first female to ever close a purchase loan there, and I was the second person to ever close a purchase loan for that company. So that was pretty cool, getting to kind of work in that startup environment. And that wasn't too different from what I'd kind of come from. So then I ended up working for a small, like local company, Apex Home Loans, that has since been bought out, but worked with the same branch for 9 years. Absolutely loved my time there with those guys, Scott Segrist, Bob Menton, and Scott Rosenthal. Started as kind of a loan officer assistant with them, and then worked my way up more to like a partner, working mainly with Scott Rosenthal at that point. It was really lucky that we had each other's backs and we were able to do pre-approvals and estimates and things on the weekend. And, actually we're able to have a little bit of a life too. And then now I'm back up in sort of the startup environment. I'm doing something called home equity investments, which I would call kind of a loan alternative, more of like an adjacent space for a fintech startup out of Boston called HomeTap. So it's been an interesting ride over these last 11 years. It's definitely not where I saw myself, but really, really happy that I've had a lot of really great opportunities with a lot of good people.
That's awesome. You saw me here taking some notes. The one question that we always ask at the beginning is tell us about something about yourself that people don't know but should know. But it sounds like uh, you know you told us that at the beginning. Tell me more about that. How you were on Good Morning America and all that good stuff, and how you got into that position. That's a pretty cool story.
Yeah, so I worked for this couple, Heidi and Alex Liskey. They're great, great people. And I at the time I was bartending and serving, I was in college, so it started as an internship that later ended up with me running a group of interns. Um, but it was a really wild ride. Like we were in the Baltimore Sun, Huffington Post, LA Times. So we had a ton of press exposure. So I wasn't on Good Morning America. I was in the background, like helping them coordinating the filming. But I have a picture from when they filmed, standing next to the former Miss America, whose name I can't remember off the top of my head. She's absolutely beautiful, and I'm 5'10", and she's like towers over me.
Oh wow.
So that was pretty funny to see too. Like, there's not a lot of women that I come across that are a lot taller than me. Um, and it was on New Year's Day that they filmed that in our office over in Timonium, Maryland. So it was our office was right behind High Tops, if you know where that is. But it was a pretty wild ride. So it was interesting being in a space like with kids wearing Dior and Fendi and Versace and all that kind of good stuff. And I really liked like I've always really loved clothes, so it was a fun first job kind of out of school, but it started as an internship that ended up being a little bit more. And honestly, too, it was definitely a sales role. I did a lot of business to business. Like we worked with a lot of photographers that were doing like small mini sessions. Um, and we would provide like the wardrobes and they would include that kind of in their pricing. Um, so it was a lot of kind of business to business sales plus the social media sales, as I already mentioned. So definitely I've always kind of had that salesy part of my job. And I feel like that all started when I started bartending and serving like years ago. You're either just good with people or you're not, so it's just I feel like I've just kind of ended up in these roles where I've had a lot of customer facing interaction, which has always been fun for me.
Yeah, no, got it. And so that's actually a good tie-in and lead into the question that I was going to ask you, like in regards to like a skill set and qualities that like people look for when evaluating talent. Even then, but also more or less now because things are evolving. Like for instance, last week, I'm sure we might touch on this a little bit. You and your team, YPN pulled together a pretty massive event with an AI,
Yeah.
we would call it AI Summit. And
Yes.
so, I was able to attend the event. I wasn't able to be there last year, but just to see the amount of people that was interested in being there and that were participating, it was a pretty massive event. So I say all that to say, when you and I got into the industry and the business, things were a bit different, like at least technology wise. I do think that the skill set that you need hasn't necessarily changed so much, and also the qualities. But can you speak to that? Because the one of the main reasons that you're here today is to talk about building career opportunities. Because as you mentioned, and I'm the same way. I didn't know mortgage had a T in it either, and we we got into the business. And so, with that said, can you speak to the skill set and qualities that's needed to that you feel that is needed to be in the business?
Yeah, absolutely. So to your point, I don't think a ton of it really has changed since, AI is, really moving things forward at a quick pace. I think personality, you can't teach somebody to have a good personality and be someone that people enjoy being around. You either are or you're not. And I think too, work ethic. You can't teach somebody to be a hard worker. You can't teach somebody to like be a go-getter and want to, go the extra mile. Because it's not even just going the extra mile for your career, it's also going the extra mile for your customer. And that really is going to make or break your career. If you're that person that goes above and beyond to do what you have to do to get a deal done, that's somebody that's typically going to make it versus a person who's like, it's 5:30. I don't feel like doing an estimate today. I don't feel like, making that one more call. Um, you can't really have that attitude in this industry. Especially too, I think the internet and AI has really just sped up how quickly, offers go through a lot faster now. The market moves really quick, but also too, I think the expectation is people want information and they want it like soon. They want it now. And it gets to be kind of a challenge, I think, in this industry. It gives you a lot of freedom, right? Because you can kind of work wherever you want and you can kind of work the hours you want, but it also kind of comes with that responsibility of like you need to be motivated enough to pull out your laptop at 9 o'clock at night. Um, and you hope that doesn't happen and you've prepared yourself, but like you're going to have times that no matter what you do and how prepared you are, that somebody's going to need something from you. And this is their biggest, for a lot of people, it's their biggest purchase. It's a huge life decision for them. And, they need your guidance, they need your help. So, at the ninth hour when they're getting ready to write their offer or they're amending their offer, something like that, that's not the time for you to kind of go silent and not be there for them. So I think that that's like a big part and problem solving. Like that has always been a thing that I like enjoy doing. I like seeing the puzzle pieces and trying to figure out how to make it all work. That's definitely a big part of this job. I don't feel like any loans that you're going to do are going to be the same. You're going to have different agents involved. You're going to have a different buyer, different seller, different property. And some are obviously a lot more easy, like a lot easier than others. But you know, everyone has their good, bad, and ugly parts that you have to kind of work through. And I think for me too, like a big part of how I grew my career was I would just pick up the phone and call who I thought might know the answer. And I can tell you that no one was ever mean to me when I did that. And if they didn't know the answer, they would tell me who to call that would. And I think there's a lot of people now today, especially in sales, that are afraid to say, "Hey, I don't know the answer to this question, but I'm going to get it for you." To me, that is such a huge sign of intelligence that you're going to say, "Hey, I don't actually know, but I'm going to go figure it out." Um, so that would definitely be a quality I would look for in someone too, because there are still things that I don't know in this industry that I come across that are new to me, and I've done thousands of deals at this point. So having the ability to know when you don't know the answer, you're going to go look for the answer. You're going to go ask who you need to ask. That's a really important skill to have too.
No, thanks for that. One of my favorite two words in a statement is be curious. I find myself talking to my kids about that all the time. Like when they're asking questions, like I really don't mind answering your questions. It's okay because I do want to help you. Like you just mentioned, ask for help if you need it, but like just be curious. And that curiosity is also a part of, like you mentioning, realizing the fact that you don't know the answer, and how do you find the answers to the questions that you're looking for. So thanks for that, Kay. You and I, we talk quite a bit about this, trying to solve these problems, like in our industry, so to speak, because depending upon where you read, the it seems like our industry is aging out, so to speak, right? Where there's the average age is in the mid 50s, which means that most people have 20 plus years of experience. Like, do you have a thought on that? Because both of us mentioned that, they don't talk about being in the, mortgage banking industry when we're in college. Like, that's not even a career that's thought of. Like, why do you think that is? Like, why we're just talking right now, but like, why do you think that we're not on anybody's radar, like in regards to our industry?
I think a little bit of that has to do with 2008, to be quite honest with you, because I think that quite this became a less sexy industry after that time, like for people to get into. I think that there was more of a connotation, especially to like you watch the movie The Big Short, right?
Uh,
And they act like the loan officers are idiots and they're just out partying and having a good time. And there's definitely a little bit of that in this industry where that's what people think that we do. Um so I think that's part of it. I also think that I graduated from high school in 2009. So I kind of graduated into that big mess as far as like when I was going to college. They weren't pushing people to get into the housing industry at that point because there was a ton of people that were being laid off, fired, companies were going under. It wasn't an industry that needed people at that point. So I think part of it's timing, with all of that that happened. I also think too that our industry, because of just, margins getting really compressed as far as costs, I think that we are not set up as an industry to really train new people, unfortunately. And what I mean by that is you used to have a lot of branch managers that didn't originate, right? And that was kind of their job. They would kind of help manage pipelines. They would help the new person in the office, teach them everything that they knew. And margins got compressed. I don't, you really don't see a lot of branch managers anymore that don't originate. And the problem is that the branch managers that do originate, they make significantly more money on their deals versus helping somebody else with theirs. So the financial incentive isn't exactly there either. Um, so I feel like that's kind of an industry-wide problem, and a lot of companies can't afford trainers. So there's not a lot that's like getting out there. They're not going to college fairs. They're not really trying to pull anybody in because they don't really have the resources for the next steps of what to do with these people. So most mortgage companies, they throw all their money at recruiting already existing talent and trying to bring them on versus trying to train the new people coming in. And at some point that's something that's got to change. There's a couple companies out there that are really good at doing it, but I would say most are pretty abysmal, unfortunately. So
Right. Yeah. No, that's a real problem, and um, part of my tenure as the president of the Maryland Mortgage Bankers and Brokers Association is to try to figure out how to solve for that. At least do our part. I can't say that we're going to fix the problem right away, or even our efforts. No, unsure. But like that's something that for me is super important. Is to continue to help the next generation, because people are still going to be buying homes for the
mm,
unforeseeable future. And so, thanks for that, Kate. We talk about this all the time. So as we're talking
yeah.
about building careers, like you're in the mortgage industry, right, or real estate industry, for lack of a better term. Uh, in your case, you've given some good advice already, just some things that personality, work ethic, and such. And I call it being curious. But what guidance would you give to someone in their mortgage career who wants to grow quickly? Like, not necessarily like, I mean, you can come from an aspect because you've been on large teams before, how to grow your business, but like really how to maneuver through the industry and get to a point where it's like, yeah, I've made it, and this is a career for me. Like, you have any feedback on that?
Yeah, I think there's a couple pieces of advice there. I would say networking is going to be your best friend, like getting yourself out there, really getting to know people. Also, too, I would say that I think that in this business, it's so pushed heavily of go after realtors, go after realtors, go after realtors. And I don't necessarily think that's bad advice, but I think that that is not the best approach anymore. I think you really kind of need more of a holistic approach. And what I mean by that is financial advisors, CPAs, go after some other people that are kind of tied into this industry or looked at as financial experts that can refer you as well. Um, I really do think that referrals like the best way to go as far as leads. When you're buying leads, it's all a numbers game, right? It's just how many can you potentially convert, but there's no loyalty there. Where if you're a referral from the best friend, if you're a referral from the agent, if you're a referral from that financial planner that I pay money for advice for, I'm going to take that significantly more to heart than somebody that I read their online reviews or I saw them on social media. And I think that that's kind of a miss for young people is that they want to spend 50% of their time on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, like doing all these great mortgage videos. Do I think it's important to have your name out there? Yeah, absolutely. But I can tell you 50% of people's business isn't coming from there. So like actually knowing where to spend your money, um, and your time and your energy is important. Like you got to look at where your business is actually coming from. I will tell you too, most people don't know how to actually refer you. So, like, my mom is probably one of the best referral partners that I've ever had. My mom is not a real estate agent. My mom is a nurse. Okay. She does not like, she's not in this business, but like I've done a ton of loans for like people that she works with and friends and things like that. So I think like just educating people on like what you do, why you do it, and how to refer you is really important. Some of these referrals are going to come from people that are not necessarily kind of where you think they're going to come from, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. So also though, think about this: the average person that's coming into our industry now may or may not be coming in as a loan officer, right? Or may not be coming in as a salesperson. Um, the it seems like ultimately though that's the job that's sort of decorated, and obviously sales helps companies move forward in regards to revenue and such, but we can't do any of it without everything else that's involved in the process. Like,
Right.
can you speak to that, like knowing like your background too as well? Like you came in, as you mentioned, in a team environment, in more or less like a support role, and then you grew into to what you've been doing, recently into today, in regards to originations and such. Like, what, how is there other growth within the mortgage industry, as well, that you've been able to see? And are there any success stories for people that have like more or less kind of climb the ladder?
Yeah, I mean, I think on the operations side, a lot of times what you see is processors that become underwriters that then potentially maybe come into like more of like a lead of operations or like an operational manager role. I would say that's kind of like the ops side of things that you see happen pretty frequently. I will tell you, I have seen some processors that have turned loan originators that have done well. And the reason that they're doing well is because they understand the guidelines, they understand the process, right? Um, and then, of course, there's kind of the loan officer assistant, or somebody that maybe does some like managerial things around the office that ends up going into more of a loan officer origination role. I've seen a lot of, success stories there. I think people that go straight to sales, where I don't necessarily think that that's a terrible idea because, you're just putting all of your effort into that and growing your business. I do think the lead time between you starting, getting a license, and then actually starting to close some deals is pretty far out. And a lot of times that's financially not a super sustainable idea. So, like if you're young, you're living with your parents, really don't have a lot of overhead, that might be the best way for you to go because you can really just kind of dive in and you can take the risk. But if you're a little bit older, you have rent, you have a car payment, like it gets harder to take that financial risk where you're mostly commission based, other than like an hourly wage that you're basically paying back through your commission anyway. Um, so I think a lot of times for people like that want to get in, it's going to be a little bit of an easier path going through like a loan officer assistant role or a processing role. And also too, it gives you the time to actually learn the business. Like that's the other thing that's tough when you're new in sales is that you don't know what you don't know until it kind of bites you. And I
Yeah.
think we've all had those experiences of like, I didn't know this was a thing. I didn't know this was a problem until you have a deal and it happens to you. Um, I'm sure you probably have a couple of those, Sean, like those stories that probably stick out in your mind of things that you like. And I guarantee, like, if that ever happened to you, which I'm sure it did at some point, you probably never forgot about it. You probably never made that mistake again, right?
Oh yeah, because it's there's so much pressure.
Yeah.
It's high stakes when we're doing this because you know most of the time you got someone that's in a moving truck, like they've canceled their lease if if they're living in a renting or something like that, and they put in their notice, they got no place to go. It's not like they're homeless, but they're like for
Yeah.
a negative reason, but literally they've broken their lease. They don't have this apartment or this place that they're going to be staying, and they're depending upon you to make sure that this next house that you've committed to helping them to finance, that it happens. And then sometimes there are mistakes that happen that are catastrophic and
Yeah.
affect deals. And so yeah, that's the piece that um, weighs heavily on us, I think, because of how important it is, and it's just such a domino effect when things don't go right.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, next thing the buyer can't move in, and now the seller doesn't have their money, so they can't buy their
about
house. And
everyone.
then it's like,
Yeah,
it just kind of keeps on going. And I think that that's sort of an issue when you do try to go directly into that sales route. If you really don't have somebody that's like mentoring you and like really checking your work and really helping you, you do get a lot more of those blow ups like that. So I think it's really important to have somebody that is going to help you and take a look at that so that you don't have that situation. And the other thing too is a lot of times, like when you are in that situation, you're building your book of business, that's the first deal you're doing with that referral partner, right? That might
Yeah.
be the agent. Like, and if you blow the whole thing up, you're not getting any more. So it's not even just that deal, it's future deals that are riding on that success. And it's that I think is a really hard part to this job is the amount of pressure that comes with that. And so that I think in that regard too, it can be a little bit easier kind of going from one of those stepping stone roles into sales because you have the background of like what's going to blow up a deal. You kind of know what to look for. Unfortunately, the licensing test does not prepare you for any of that. Um, it's a
No.
very small portion of what it's obviously there to make sure you're not breaking laws and things like that, and you're being fair and treating everyone equally, but it doesn't actually teach you the job, which is really, really tough.
Yeah, but the industry is so rewarding. I remember I've been in a couple different industries before, and I've never gotten like I remember before I started doing mortgages, I was in the insurance industry and life and health, and so a life insurance policy is important, it's super important, right? It doesn't help many people unless you get a certain type of insurance while they're living, right? It helps the family after someone is deceased. And so, like, you don't get, thank you for selling me this policy. This is awesome. This is going to change our lives and so forth and so on. Whereas I saw a shift when I got into the mortgage industry where it was like folks were more grateful, right?
Yeah.
This was something that was going to help their quality of life. This was something that was also going to help them from an investment aspect and legacy in the future. And so that's something that's been very rewarding, and it's worth the pressure and allows you to keep fighting and such. And so that piece is something that I hang on to. The other thing that I wanted to say is, the more I think about this, like the pricing engines have helped me so much over the years to figure out what I can and can't do. Because if you think
Mhm.
about it, like you go in, like for instance, you do an FHA mortgage, right? If you put a 3% down payment in there, right, you're not going to get pricing,
That's true.
right?
Yeah, that is
So
true.
there's not going to be anything that pops up that allows you to get an interest rate or to get pricing, right? But there are notes at the bottom to kind of tell you why you can't do it. Um, at least the pricing engines today, and going back, you kind of have to look at a rate sheet of paper and
Yeah.
such, or you go to the guidelines and you try to search to figure out why you can't do a certain thing. But like even the folks that are coming to the industry now, you can kind of play around with it. And now I go to, like I said, being curious, I entered, 3% down payment on an FHA mortgage. Why am I not getting pricing? So immediately they'll say, well, you need 3.5% down. Oh, boom, I need an extra 0.5% down. Like I've noticed that pricing engines have really helped me to understand where to look for in the guidelines to kind of understand why I'm unable to quote an interest rate and such. And so that's been something that I kind of, when I talk to new people that are in the business or trying to learn the guidelines, I just tell them to go in and just price loans. And more often than not, you'll find ways in which you can go into the guidelines and figure out why you can't do a certain thing or a certain product.
Well, and I have to say, I think AI is going to be a really powerful tool with this as well, because it used to be that you had to go through all regs, you had to go, you had to go to the FHA handbook, like you had to go, and then of course companies have overlays on top of that, right? So I think AI is going to be a powerful tool and kind of starting to help compare and contrast some of those guideline issues versus having to like individually look them up in all their different places, talk to an underwriter. But I will say, even with that ability, there is still a lot of gray area, but that just kind of comes with experience of like knowing what you can and can't get away with, or how you need to document a certain thing that's not in the guidelines. So having a good relationship with ops is like super, super important. Like, treat your ops people well. That's gonna do you, it's gonna do you such a world of good that you can pick up the phone and call your closing manager, talk to one of the underwriters, like that you have access to those kinds of resources. Because I can tell you, like, as long as you're not abusing them and you're using them wisely, those people are going to be your best friends when it comes to, like, you have this gray area on a deal and you might be able to get it done, you might not be able to get it done. You wanna make sure you can get it done first before you're promising anything, and, they're gonna be so, so helpful, but, a lot of times there's this friction between sales and ops, and they're really I feel like the most successful loan officers I've seen are good at kind of balancing that and, you know, treating their ops people well. Like, so that's gonna be something that's gonna serve you too.
Yeah, that's the golden rule. Do unto others.
Yeah.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. You must, just be nice. Just be a good person. Well, you don't have to be nice. Just be a good person. And then put yourself in other people's shoes. So yeah, ops is definitely. I stopped saying ops. I just say non-sales. Um,
Mm.
but that's a mouthful. It's a little bit much. It's easier to say ops, but
It's interesting though, like, I don't use the word underwriter now, I always say our underwriting team, our processing team, because I feel like when people hear the word underwriter, they think of, like, somebody with, like, devil horns that's gonna deny their loan.
No,
So I feel
they
like
want to make the loan.
they're on our team, like, they wanna do business. So I think it's really helpful if you say underwriting team, it makes it feel like it's not just, like, one person who maybe is having a bad day or something. So I feel like I've gotten a little more choosy with words. I also am very careful about not throwing underwriting and processing under the bus with stuff. Like, they might catch something that I missed, and that's on me. But, I feel like having the respect to not blame other people too, like, that's something that can really get you into hot water with this industry of like, "Oh, the title company did it. Oh, the underwriter did," like, don't do that. Just just take responsibility for what
Own
is
it.
yours, whether you did it or not.
Yeah,
That's gonna serve you well too.
yeah, just own it. I think we have one or two more questions, I think, may lead into something else. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you for sticking with us thus far. Thank you, Kate, for your expertise and knowledge. But let's talk about, as we wrap things up, let's talk about leadership. Um, how important or what role does like leadership play in shaping your career inside an organization?
I think leadership's really important. I can definitely say that I interviewed for some mortgage companies or very early on in my career, and the managers I was interviewing with, I asked myself one really important question: would I go to them for help? Would I ask them for help? Could I be vulnerable with them and say I don't know how to do this? If the answer to that was no, that was not going to be the place for me. And I think being able to identify, who you think you're gonna get along with and who you feel like is gonna be helpful to you is gonna be really important. And at all organizations, all industries, you have some leaders that are better than others. You have some that are truly leaders, and then you have some that are like bosses, right? That are just gonna kind of tell you what to do. I think really having a good relationship and making sure that somebody and an environment that you think you can learn in is gonna be really important. I also think too, just like kind of the emphasis they're putting on training and learning and growing their talent. A lot of companies are recruiting just like who does business and does a good job at it now. And not everybody is trying to recruit towards people like developing new talent. And I think making sure that you're asking questions surrounding that of like, how are you going to help me? Who's my mentor going to be? Am I going to be on a team? Like those are all really important questions to be asking when you're first getting into the business or you're pretty new in the business still, because you really do need to have resources of help that's available to you, not just from 9 to 5 or a couple hours a day. Like, when you have a situation on a weekend where you need to do something for one of your clients, do you have somebody that's going to help you? Like, that's a big deal. And I think that comes kind of top down, sort of that environment. We all want to be competitive. We all want to do well. But are they doing it in a way that's building up the sales team together versus pinning them against each other? And that's important, I think, too, because you're going to see more of the pinning against each other in companies that don't care about development of their talent, of like so and so's doing better than you kind of deal. So I think that's a really important thing to look for too.
No, thanks for that. And so, lastly, Kate, what did I miss? What did we miss? Did we miss anything that you want to add? And specifically, too, as we wrap up, if you can give someone like an actionable career tip that they can apply right away today, please do so. But like, did we miss anything?
I would say the biggest thing that I've learned, and I've learned this later on in my career, um, is be yourself. I think in sales, in any industry, it's really easy to kind of do the people pleasing thing. And, you try to like mirror their tone and some of their language and stuff. And I think it's really easy sometimes to get kind of lost in like, this is what this person needs. I'm going to be that person for them. And the reality is that you are going to be so much more successful if you show up just genuinely being you and genuinely having your own interests and things that you care about and really showing people like why you're in this industry. You know, for a lot of us, and it sounds like for you too, Sean, like you're really, you know, dedicated to your homeowners and like wanting to help people with this next step of their lives. And that's kind of what's driving you, you know, to deal with the stress and to deal with, you know, everything this industry brings. But so I think being just really unapologetically you is going to take you so much further. And that was something that I learned, you know, later on. Like I saw a big increase in like conversion and things like that when I just kind of just started really truly being myself, you know, and I still do all this, you know, all those different sales techniques the same, but like how I would talk to people and kind of put things like instead of taking it like, oh, this person who's a top producer says it like this or does it like this. Once you kind of figure out a rhythm that works for you and you kind of come up with your own stuff, that's where I think you really start, you know, just doing really well. Like it's so easy to swipe and adapt in the beginning. And to a degree, it serves you well for a while. But at some point, you got to really reevaluate and be like, is this really how I want to come off sounding? Is this really me? Does this make sense? And that was something that I wish I would have learned a little bit earlier on because it just seemed like things with my career really took off and started going into a much more like much bigger direction when I just was myself. So
Wow. It was funny. I heard you say swipe and adapt.
yeah, I mean that's what you do when you're learning. Like that's what you do, and you know what, it works for a while, but it's not forever. Like have that in your mind of like maybe when you're getting started and you're overwhelmed, maybe you do what some of the other people are doing that you like, but make it your own. I feel like that's what you forget is you forget to sometimes make those things your own.
Yeah, things changed for me a lot because I played it pretty safely when I first started in the business. Didn't really rock the boat too much or whatnot, and was really trying to find my way. And lots of times I felt like I wasn't exactly myself, like I was being myself, but like it was like a cookie cutter approach, so to speak. But
Yeah.
then once I found the authenticity, it was like, all right, like this is Sean, like he's the mortgage guy, does business. So this is Sean. We want to work with Sean. And Sean, like you mentioned, I really like the startup environments.
Mhm.
I enjoy those types of businesses. And so yeah, authenticity is definitely key. It's definitely key. So
Yeah. I've noticed a huge difference in people just being like, I trust you and the advice you're giving me. And I think it's because I'm so much more genuinely myself now that it's like they know that I'm not just saying like things they want to hear, if that makes sense. Um, so that would be something that I wish that like and again, like you're not like compromising your values or who you are exactly, but it's like you show up a little bit different. I think at first, and then once you get kind of comfortable with things, like just make them your own, make them you, and people are going to have a lot more respect and trust you a lot more when you do that.
well, yes, ma'am. Well, Kate, thank you for sharing your perspective today and experience. I know you and I are going to continue to have these conversations outside of this live stream here. So, to
I'm
everyone
sure.
watching, if you found this information useful, follow MMBBA on LinkedIn, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and more than anything, share this episode with colleagues. We'll be back next week with another discussion focused on helping you stay informed, connected, and ahead of the curve. So I'm Sean Williams. Thanks, Kate Spurrier.
You're
Thanks
very
for
welcome.
watching. Hey, thanks for watching
Thanks for having me.
MMBB. Oh yeah, for sure. It's been a pleasure. So thanks for watching MMBBA Live, and we'll see you next week.